All right, today we're talking with Marine veteran Bart O'Brien, fellow Cobra pilot, founder of BAYDOG, and winner of the 11th annual FedEx Small Business Grant Contest. So, Bart, welcome to the show. Got a lot of great things to talk about. Take us back. Tell us what you did in the Marine Corps.
First of all, thanks, Joe. I'm really glad to be on with you. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, like you, I was a Cobra pilot. I went to the Naval Academy. I was a weird kid who decided I wanted to go to Navy when I was, 7 years old and be a pilot, and that's what I did. So, got out of the academy, went to Quantico, and then flight school in Pensacola, and then Cobra training in California, and then I got stationed on the East Coast, and I was getting all set to go on my med cruise, which was going to be a lot of great ports in Greece and Italy and Spain, and we were going to party our heads off. And then 9/11 happened, and my life changed pretty considerably. So I was a 3-time winner in Iraq, and kind of doing back-to-back tours between 2003 and 2006, which I didn't mind. I was a single guy. I didn't have any reason not to go. Like I told people, I didn't join the Marine Corps to sit on my butt in North Carolina. So my career, three back-to-back combat tours in Iraq, and then that was it.
Wow. And so after how many years were you in the Marine Corps before you transitioned out?
8.
Okay. Yeah, same with me. I was like 90 and 98 active. Okay, so on your way out, what was your transition like? Did you have plenty of time to plan that smooth transition?
Yeah, well, first of all, I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. So I don't know if you remember this, but after so much time in a squadron, they kind of have to move you, right? And they'd extended me twice. So I've been in the same squadron for 5 years, and I knew they had to move me. And so I applied to 5 different graduate schools. I thought I wanted to do something which were kind of apropos to my Marine Corps career. They were public policy schools. So they were all super programs. I figured I just gotta, get into one and go to the Marine Corps and say, hey, this is where I want to go. And the Marine Corps, unlike the Army and the Navy and Air Force, is pretty short-sighted about stuff like that. And they said, well, you got into the Kennedy School at Harvard, but that's a 2-year program, and you're a Cobra pilot, and we can't afford to have you out of the cockpit for 2 years. And so, I got into all 5 programs, and they were all exceptional. And I said, listen, guys, I'm going to make this easy on you. I'm going to grad school. Now, whether I go in the Marine Corps, dime or mine, is up to you. Yeah. And the Marine Corps said no. So I said, all right. And, it was the right time for me. Like, I'd done 3 straight combat tours. They'd gotten their money's worth out of me. I'd certainly gotten my money's worth out of them. And I think it was a good time for me to move on and do something else. So I got out, and I got home from Iraq, and I think I had about 18 days to pack up, sell my house, move, and start my first economics class in graduate school.
18 days after getting back from the deployment?
So wow. So I was like right off the boat, and I found myself in and like I had over 100 days of leave saved up, and so I was just on terminal for my first 4.5 months of graduate school. I was still getting a Marine Corps paycheck because I was technically on terminal. And so I remember before I came home, like getting all that lined up so I could just get home and just start processing out, and you got to tick all of those boxes on your way out the door. And I had effectively 2 weeks of working days to make that happen.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Be right back. All right, back talking with Marine veteran Bart O'Brien, founder of BAYDOG and winner of the 11th annual FedEx Small Business Grant Contest. So, Bart, when we left there at the break, got a few technical issues worked out, so we're good to go now. You had entered grad school. You had 18 days after your last deployment to get out of there, and you had told the Marine Corps I'm going to grad school, whether I'm in the Marine Corps or out of the Marine Corps. So you got out, you're in grad school. So let's pick it up from there.
Yeah, I ended up going to the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins, where I studied economics and international relations, thinking that I was going to end up working in government, continue my career of public service. At least that was the plan. And while I was in grad school, if you think about the timing, I was there, into 2007, 2008. What was happening in the world? It was economic meltdown is what was happening, and all of the stuff that I was studying in the classroom during the day, it was just one big case study when you watch the news at night. I'm taking classes in, bonds and structured financial instruments, and those are exactly what's crashing the economy. And so it was kind of a fascinating time to be there. And I made the decision that if I wanted to go back into public service, I would probably be better off having a private sector component to my career. And then I could always go back, possibly in the government someday down the road. And so I made the decision to go into the private sector, and I got hired initially to work at a structured credit hedge fund in London. So I moved to the UK, and I was in London for about 3 years, and I got recruited by a bigger hedge fund in New York, and so I moved back to New York. And after five more years in New York, one day I remember having a very distinct thought in my head, looking at the guy who sat next to me, who was 55 years old and had the same job I had, and thinking, wow, if I'm not careful, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be that guy. And I don't want to be that guy. And I didn't enjoy being the cog in a big machine in financial markets where, finance is kind of soulless. You don't make anything. I mean, at the end of the day, you move piles of money around and you repackage it and you charge a little fee. And if the pile's big enough or you move it enough times, you can make a lot of money. And it wasn't, who I am as a person. It wasn't satisfying at all. And I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I wanted to have my own business.
Yeah.
If I was going to be in the private sector, that's what I wanted to do. So, one observation I would make is that a lot of people in finance feel that way. But what happens is they get there, they start making a bunch of money, and they can't leave, right? Because they've got, kids in private school and 2 country club memberships and a boat, and they can't walk away from it. Well, I was not so burdened, right? I wasn't married, no kids. I could do whatever I wanted. So I just quit. I just one day up and without a plan, I said, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to do something else. So as a Marine and as someone in finance who traveled a ton for work, I could never have a dog. So that's something I really wanted in my life. So the only plan I had for after I quit my job was to get a dog. And so that's what I did. The day after I left my job on a Friday, Saturday morning, I got up in the morning, flew down to Georgia and picked up this little 8-pound fluff ball, who I named Walter, and who ended up becoming the co-founder of my business.
Yeah, the last room you're in, I guess Walter was on the back wall there, so I did get to see a picture of Walter before you had to close down the video. So that's interesting. There's there's so many veterans that get out and they're not soul searching really. They're thinking about what am I going to do to pay the bills? Where can I make money? What can I do where I've got skill sets, whatever, and be able to perform adequately to make money. And they run into that, something that fills the bank account, but empties their soul. So they say, yeah. And some of them figure that out too late. And, like you said, then they're kind of trapped or stuck and they can't get out. So, and I think there's a very few of us that know that before you get out. Once in a while you'll see, I had some fellow Marines that they got out and went back home and they're running the family farm. And I'm like, really, why would you do that? And now I connect with them years later and they're really happy and loving life. And so whatever that is that that you need. You mentioned something about you're not creating anything or making anything. You're just a cog. So sometimes you need creative juices, whether you're creating a business or creating products or creating art or some other kind of talents. If you need those things, you got to do some soul searching and make sure you go towards the right direction on your way out. So, so you got a dog. Where did the transition go from, I just got a really cool fluffball dog, Walter, to turn this into a business?
Yeah, so I did not plan on starting BAYDOG. Actually, I had another buddy who I worked on Wall Street with who was kind of in the same boat I was in, where he was just very dissatisfied and, wanted to leave and do something entrepreneurial. And the two of us teamed up, and what we wanted to do was actually buy a business that was already, cash flow positive, that we could, maybe innovate and grow. And we looked at a lot of different companies, and we just never got anything closed. And I decided I'm not a New York guy. And so I said, well, I'm not married. I don't have a job. I can live anywhere I want. That's not New York. And anywhere is going to be less expensive. So, what makes me happy? And I've always enjoyed Annapolis. I think it's a great little town, and it's close enough to Washington and Baltimore that I can, get my city fix if I want to. So I moved down here, and the way BAYDOG came about, I've told this story many times, but I basically created a product to make my life with my dog a little bit easier. If you look at our website, it's called the Pack and Go bag. And so we still make it. It's still a good seller. But I had somebody make a prototype for me, and just on a whim, I took it to a trade show in Chicago. This is going back 6-7 years ago. And it won the Best New Product Award. And I thought, well, hey, maybe there's a little business here. Who knows? And so I then went on to create a harness that I want. I basically looked at all the dog harnesses out there, and I thought, well, what is the perfect harness? If I could make the perfect harness for my dog, what would I want? And so I made that product, and I decided to launch a little business endeavor, kind of not knowing where it would go. And so I hired my neighbor to help me with it, because she worked at the local pet store. And so I thought, well, hey, she's perfect. So I hired her, and the two of us launched BAYDOG out of my living room back in 2018, so a little over 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just been crazy since. Now, at this point, I should probably say, if I had showed you a business plan for BAYDOG 5 years ago and said, this is the business I'm thinking of launching, you'd have said, okay, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And you wouldn't have been wrong.
Did you
it was
down?
I'm sorry?
Do you even have a business plan other than in your head?
Yeah, I mean, the Marine in me, who had been to grad school and worked on Wall Street, absolutely put pen to paper. But the reality of it is that it's a super, saturated market. It's hyper competitive. There are tons of companies that make dog leashes and dog harnesses. I mean, everyone big and small. It's just, and you can only innovate a dog leash or a dog harness so much, right? I didn't create Tesla or Airbnb, right? So it was, how are we going to carve out our little piece of the market and build a successful company? And what I determined was that all of the big names in the space, and their names, if you're in the pet space, the name Roughwear or Kurgo or Easy Dog. Like, these are the premium names that make dog accessories. And my observation was they're all sort of fighting for that same, it's like a race to the bottom, where they're fighting for that direct to consumer dollar, that they're all fighting for the buy box on Amazon.com or on Chewy. And if you own a pet store, and there are tens of thousands of brick and mortar pet stores in the United States, the worst thing that can happen to you is somebody walks in, pulls out their phone, takes a picture of a product they see, and they go home and buy it on Chewy for $3 less. right? It's even worse if they take 10 minutes of your time to try something on their dog, and then they pull out their phone and they'll do it right in front of you. And I said, you know what, we're going to build a business that is focused on that brick and mortar pet store, right? That we're not going to be on Chewy. We're not going to be on Amazon. We're not going to be anywhere else on the internet. We're never going to run sales on our website. And we're going to make the promise to every pet store owner that carries our line that you will never, ever be undersold online. And you never have to worry about a return because we got your back. And so the first page of every catalog we put out is our brick and mortar pledge to support and to just be the best partner out there. And that's what we've done. And so in 5 years, we're in about 2,000 stores. So it's just been growing. It's been tough to keep up, actually.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's an interesting. And that's been working for you. Going back to protecting and supporting the brick and mortar store.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you broke up there a little bit. What was that?
So that's been working for you, protecting the brick and mortar store, going away from the online thing where everybody else is at.
Yeah, I would say about 95% of our revenue is just selling wholesale to brick and mortar pet stores around the country. And we ship everywhere from stores in Alaska and Canada to one of our best producing stores is actually in Bermuda.
No kidding. How did you know that was a serious problem for brick and mortar store pet owner shops? Just going out and talking to pet store owners, really, and getting feedback and asking them, what their concerns were. And the one thing, it just kept coming up over and over again. And so, if you launch a company like mine and you're focused on the internet, you can spend a lot of money to get a lot of web traffic. But for us to get pet stores to order our product, it was a lot of grunt work. It's going to trade shows and shaking a lot of hands and doing a lot of in-person selling and getting on the phone and just cold calling pet stores and having the guts to say, hey, I started this company. I think the stuff we make is awesome. Here's what makes us different. Can I send you some free samples? And then remembering to follow up and get the order. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's just, it's just hours and hours and hours of sitting on the phone and getting your name out there. Yeah. And so how do we find BAYDOG? Can you actually buy it online at your website? You sure can. It's just baydog.com. And there are plenty of pictures of the aforementioned Walter on our website. He's our top model. That's awesome. All right. So you're the winner of the 11th annual FedEx Small Business Grant Contest, which is a veteran entrepreneur program and contest at FedEx. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that was all about? Yeah, it's first of all, it's really propitious that we were able to win a FedEx contest because FedEx actually played a huge role in the development of our business. So last year, about a year and a half ago, actually, when we started out, we were producing all this stuff. Our factories are overseas, and we bring it in, and we're getting all these orders. And I didn't have time to sit there and pick, pack, and ship orders. And as our SKU count started to grow, we had to put everything into a fulfillment center. And so basically, Valerie, who basically runs BAYDOG now, going back a couple of years ago, we were sitting in an office in downtown Annapolis and just constantly taking orders, and we'd send them over to the fulfillment center and they would pick, pack, and ship it. But quite frankly, they were horrible. And, they don't put any care into it. They don't really, they don't care how much it costs to ship because they're just going to charge us for every package that goes anyway. And they use, UPS and the post office. And I built a financial model that said, okay, when we hit X amount of dollars in revenue, at that point, the fulfillment center is going to be charging us so much each month that we can actually afford our own warehouse
and our own warehouse staff to do our own in-house fulfillment. And the second we hit that number, I went out and signed a lease on a new property. And the one thing that happened is we met the local FedEx rep, who was fantastic. He just retired 2 weeks ago. And what we realized is we're going to save so much money on shipping costs, like 40%. And when your whole business is shipping big wholesale boxes,
right.
that's meaningful, right? And so that's going to play a huge part in our ability to pay for this new facility and our new warehouse manager and all the stuff that goes into that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that was just huge for us. So we had a phenomenal relationship with FedEx. And when we applied for the grant, I didn't think we had much of a chance to win, to be honest, just because I looked at all these amazing companies that had won in the past. And I was like, man, you know, we just make stuff for dogs. I don't know. I mean, there's all these amazing, innovative, super creative companies that do all this social good. And I can't speak for FedEx as to why they gave us the grant. I think part of it might be because we're so focused on supporting small businesses and buying local and supporting that local mom and pop pet store. And FedEx is so dedicated to supporting small business like us and like all the small businesses we support. I think maybe that might have had something to do with it, because it is, after all, a small business grant, and our company really exists to support all those small business pet store owners out there.
Yeah. Was it, you know, the application process and filling all that, was it pretty extensive, or what was that experience like?
I wouldn't say it was extensive. So for anyone looking to apply, it's not burdensome, but it does require some effort on your part. You do have to take some time and tell a good story and make sure that they really understand your business. So, you know, I spent, you know, several hours on our application, and yeah, like I said, it's not difficult. It's not overly burdensome, but you do have to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah. And what kind of details can you share with us? You know, what are the bennies of winning the contest?
Well, first of all, a check for $30,000 doesn't hurt. Just to start. And then we were actually fortunate enough that, so there are 10 winners every year out of thousands and thousands of companies that apply, and 9 of those companies get a check for $30,000. And then one company wins the veteran-owned prize as well and gets an additional $20,000 from USAA. And this year we were the beneficiaries of that. So yeah, the first benefit is $50,000 in your company bank account, which really helps.
Wow, that's awesome.
And as someone who is a 23-year member of USAA, no, going back, 33-year member of USAA, I think, that's really like cool and satisfying to win that as well for us. But yeah, there are a bunch of great little prizes. You know, there's one thing we used almost right away was a $1,000 credit for FedEx Business Services for, you know, printing and things like that. As a matter of fact, we just printed on really nice cardstock these signs. We have there's a new chain of stores in the Midwest that picked up our dog life jackets and toys, and we just printed a whole bunch of signs to go on their displays, and it didn't cost us anything because the FedEx, FedEx Business did it for us, and it looks great. Yeah. So, and then, you know, FedEx has partnered with a bunch of firms that, you know, we just had a consultation with someone that specializes in SEO and e-commerce. You know, the one thing we don't do a very good job of at our business is direct to consumer sales from our website. I mean, last year my ad spend was, you know, 0 because we're so focused on supporting the brick and mortar stores. So, you know, having a sit down with an e-commerce specialist that partners with FedEx is really helpful. And they also have a bunch of internal assets like I have a meeting next week with their packaging consultant, right? And then we have another e-commerce, like from FedEx, internal e-commerce specialists that are going to help us build that part of the business. We get FedEx, we're elevated to, and I'm going to screw up exactly what it's called, but FedEx Premier Client Access, which kind of moves us to the front of the queue for special services. They even gave us like a credit for the FedEx Rewards store, and actually I used ours to buy the earbuds that I had in when we initially started this interview, even though the computer failed. So just a ton of great benefits and resources that they put at your disposal. And then also, we get to meet a bunch of other really cool entrepreneurs. Like we're now part of the FedEx 2023 class of winners. There's 10 companies with 10 interesting entrepreneurs, and I think we're all going to get together this fall at a symposium down in Memphis to talk about our companies and our experience.
Wow, man, the list goes on. Holy cow! What a great list of benefits, and what an awesome program. So yeah, congratulations on that, and that's got to feel great. So you've at this point you've crossed over. I mean, you are an entrepreneur. You are a successful business owner. What's that feel like compared to being in corporate America, being an employee? And I often ask, a lot of entrepreneurs refer to themselves as unemployable at this point because they know what it's like to run their own show.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that. I would say the most gratifying part of this experience is the relationships that I've been able to build, not just with pet store owners all around the country and other people we do business with, but internally. My employees are all amazing. I've been really, really lucky, and I've told this, like my warehouse manager, for example, Steve, is the former postmaster at the local post office who, retired and he lives 3 minutes away. And, if there's somebody who can, get packages out the door better than Steve, I haven't met him. And Christy, who you saw her earlier, we just hired her sales. She's just fantastic. And we're at the point now, when I first started, I did everything. Right. I was, doing sales, creating products, doing all the admin stuff on all the orders. And I knew every single store we were in. I knew every store owner. And now that we've grown, what's so satisfying for me is seeing Valerie or Steve or Christy do something to make BAYDOG a better company, without me even being involved. Like I'll come in the warehouse is completely reorganized, and the three of them have been working on this new system, and they've implemented it, and I had nothing to do with it, right? And seeing them care, it's just that's the best part about being an entrepreneur. I don't know if it makes me unemployable. I don't have plans to go back to the workforce, but I'm sorry. What was the other part of your question?
I don't know. I already forgot. No. So I'll just give you a follow-on question. Actually, we'll try to wrap this up here in a minute, but because we're getting close to the end of our time. So now that you've crossed over, you become an entrepreneur. You're successful. You're making money and operating your business properly. If you had to talk to those other people that are still in the military, or they're on their way out, or maybe they don't like where they landed after they got out, and they're looking to get into entrepreneurship, run their own show, what kind of advice comes to mind for them?
I remember when I was in grad school, I interviewed for a job, and the guy who interviewed me said, on the way home from Iraq, I was actually part of the lucky few that got sent to Liberia. I don't know if you remember when that happened. And here we are thinking we're going home, and they're like, "Hey, could you guys make a left turn and spend a few more months down in Liberia," which is a real garden spot if you've never been, especially when the government's falling apart and the people don't have any food. But the guy who interviewed me said, when you got to Liberia, like no one in your unit had ever been there before. You didn't know what to do. You just had to kind of figure it out, right? And I said, yeah, I guess that's right. And that lesson kind of stuck with me. I didn't take a class on how to start a dog accessory company. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just decided, well, I'll just figure it out. And the thing that the military does for all of us, whether we realize it or not, is it makes us resourceful, right? Every time you do that, for every person who served that does that first deployment, they don't know what to expect until they get there. And we all kind of have to figure it out that first time on our own. And we don't even realize that we're learning that skill set, but we are. And so my advice to anybody who has that experience kind of, in their background is don't be afraid to take a risk, and don't be afraid to fail, because we all, when we were in the military, we all made mistakes. We all had failures. But in the end, it all worked out. Right. So,
yeah.
Don't be afraid to take that leap and to make mistakes, and you're going to figure it out. And if you don't, then you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you try again. That's kind of the mindset we've all grown with. I think a lot of people are afraid to take that initial leap, or maybe they don't realize that they're as resourceful and as capable as they really are.
Wow. Well said, man. That's awesome. So, we're out of time. I think let's just end with that, because it was a great summary and great advice for anybody out there looking to start their own business, especially veterans coming out of the military. So, Bart, congratulations on winning the FedEx Small Business Grant Contest, and also congratulations on running a successful business, man. You've entered the world of entrepreneurship, and we look forward to seeing your future success.
Well, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate you having me, and congratulations to you on the successful podcast. It's awesome.
You bet. All right. These two Marines are asking.
All right. Thanks again.